All right, good morning, everyone. Hope you all are having a good day today. Boy, didn't that snow come out of nowhere? Okay, I was a little bit late to my 8 a.m. class this morning. I would have been on time, but they closed Front Hill, so I had to go around town and yeah, whatever. I made it eventually, so only a couple minutes late. But I'm glad to see all of you here today. Just kind of let you guys know, about one weekend I'll start taking attendance. So hypothetically, if you wanted to skip, it wouldn't count against you, although I'm certainly not recommending it. Okay, I think the first couple classes with Excel are going to be very important. But like I said, I'm not going to take attendance the first couple days, just to kind of let the roster kind of settle in and that sort of stuff. I'm going to just drop out, I think, for a week. So just kind of keep that in mind. But apart from that, I'm glad to see you all. Hope you're glad to see me. But we'll be looking at Canvas for just a little bit. Go ahead and sign into Canvas if you would. I'll give you guys a minute to do that. And also make sure you have a notebook if that's how you want to take notes. Just to remind you, I expect you to take notes over what you don't know. And like I said, if you have more than a couple of questions, I might ask to see your notebook. So keep that in mind. It's never for a grade, but just if you ever had a question. So we'll talk about notes as we go a little bit. But while you guys are signing into Canvas, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over the course in Canvas. We didn't really have time to do this last class. So pretty straightforward layout. You got the stuff in the home. You have the syllabus here. The schedule, we're going to take a look at it. I have the link to the recordings. So you can certainly watch the lecture recordings, which I'm recording right now, by the way. So certainly keep that in mind. As we scroll down a little bit here, we see our different labs. First lab is going to be due on the 7th. So we don't have anything due in here until the 7th of February, so a little bit of time. We'll have lab days in class as well, so don't worry about that. The file we're going to be using is this Microsoft Excel Basic Functions. Go ahead and download that. And then all the other stuff is stuff we'll be using in future classes. Another thing I want to make note of, I have the formulas and functions, as well as the Excel Learning homepage here. So they're both available right here on the home. So we'll go ahead and launch both of these as well. And like I said, we don't have a textbook in here. This is the closest you're going to get to a textbook. The good news is that it's free. It doesn't cost anything. The bad news is it's not a physical book. Some people that bothers, some people that doesn't bother. So that's just pretty much how we'll be doing things. Apart from that, we went over all the other stuff. So it's pretty much all in Canvas. All right, any questions about that so far? Anything I need to go over again, address, anything at all? Okay, good stuff. Let's take a quick look at the schedule. Like I said, this is another thing we didn't get to cover last class. I apologize. 55-minute classes can be a little bit quick sometimes. So today and tomorrow, or not tomorrow, today and Friday, we'll be going over basic Excel functions, that sort of thing, just basic stuff in Excel, making sure everyone's very confident going into it. Because right after that on Monday, 31st, we're picking up with doing if, logic, and date functions. Okay. Then we have a lab that we'll be doing in class. Lab days are optional. You don't have to attend them, especially in person. I recommend it though, because I'll be here. It'll be basically come and go as you please, of course, and no attendance taken. Just, go around, walk around a couple times, see how you guys are doing. If you need any help with anything, be happy to do so. So that's the lab days. Then we have an article discussion. The article's already posted in Canvas. So you can go ahead and get a head start reading it if you wanted. It's this IT Doesn't Matter article right here. So, it's going to be done, I think, the 4th. And then we'll have another sort of integrative practice day and that sort of thing. We'll cover pivot tables after that, a couple lectures on analytics. We'll do some Microsoft Excel class exercises with analytics, as well as have another lab day. Okay, so that pretty much is where we're going to be at for this first little unit here. A couple weeks long, really all about Excel. Okay, so just to remind you, you can use any device you want within reason. Yeah, there's probably some devices that I'd rather you not use, but for the most part, use anything. Please have your stuff muted, of course. Use a personal device if you prefer your personal device for Excel. Use a lab computer if you prefer a lab computer for Excel. Use them both, you know. You're going to have to use it eventually because we have homeworks that are due. And also take notes. So as we go, take notes however works best for you. If it works best for you to take notes into Excel, then do that. If it works best for you to take notes on pen and paper, then do that. You know, however it works best for you, that's what I suggest to you. All right, so that's just an overview of what we'll be doing in this first little unit. Are there any questions about anything? Okay, pretty straightforward. Good. All right, so one of the downsides of this classroom is that I have to sit down a lot to use Excel. I wish this were a standing podium. I don't like to sit down and lecture, but I have what I have, so I do apologize for that. I hope that doesn't bother anyone too much, but I'll be up and pointing to stuff a good bit too. So that's said, let's go ahead, and if you haven't already, let's go ahead and pull up this Microsoft Excel basic functions file. Just go ahead and download this onto your computer. Just click this download right here. And you can just open it with Excel or you can save it either way. And once you have it pulled up, make sure you've enabled editing. And we'll go over some basic stuff in Excel. And this class does start off a little bit basic. How many of you guys have used Excel? Okay, about half of you. Anyone want to share something they've done in Excel? What have you done in Excel? Okay, so built out some basic models maybe. Okay. Yeah, so that's certainly something that it could be used for. Anyone else want to share anything they've used Excel for? Yeah. Okay. It's got a lot of date functions. We're covering those in about a week or so. Certainly it has the ability to copy and paste things. Could be an easy tool to work with for stuff like that. Any other projects anyone wants to share? Well, Excel's a tool that can really be used for a multitude of tasks. You know, it can be used for anything from basic analytic tasks to storing data long term, although that's not recommended. We're covering databases in this class in just a little bit. But we're going to start off with Excel. So first of all, it's going to be the most widely used business intelligence package there is. Okay? Almost every organization is going to have Excel licenses. Okay? So it's important that you use it because when you go off into the workforce, like I said last class, it's very likely that you're going to be asked, what can you do in Excel? So this first unit is all about ensuring that you have a pretty good range of stuff you can do in Excel. Okay? And I just want to remind everyone, if I'm going too fast, if I need to repeat anything, please raise your hand and let me know. I'm happy to do so. I can explain things a different way if you need, whatever you need. Happy to do. All right, let's go over the basic parts of Excel. Okay, we have the basic ribbon up here. It's this interface with the file, home, insert, and all that. Okay, that's where we're going to be able to apply a lot of different stuff. We'll see more as we go. Okay, so we're going to be able to save the document using the File button. Just click File, go to Save As. Now, one thing that's important for this class, if you look at the labs, which I'm not asking you to do right now, but a lot of the labs require you to use this XLSX format. Okay, so sometimes you may be confused as to why something isn't uploading into Canvas. It's probably because the instructions say to save it in a particular format. So we can change the format by just using this drop-down and selecting the different formats. So for instance, we could use CSV right here. So we could use CSV. although we're not going to, but it's possible. Okay, lots of different formats. You may use XLS, although when I say you may, I'm not giving you permission to. It's just saying it's possible to use it. Okay, everything you're doing in 2021, or 2022 now, right? Goodness, I'm behind the times. Okay, you should be using the XLSX format. Does that make sense? So again, I'm starting off basic. Let me know if something's not making sense. Okay, and of course you can change the location. Just hit this browse right here. You can save it wherever you'd like. Okay. So, covered the ribbon, covered the file menu. Another important thing to know is this bar right here. This is a formula bar. Okay, this is where we're going to type in all of our formulas and equations. This big bar right here. Okay? Has a little derivative symbol in front of it. Does everyone see that? Okay? Excel is laid out in a grid. Okay? So accordingly, a grid has what? Has rows and columns. The rows are going to be denoted horizontally. They're going to be denoted with numbers. And the columns are denoted vertically, of course, with letters. So what we do is we put the column and the row, and that forms a cell. Okay, so if I were to say I want to go to E15, okay? So what I do is I go to the E column and I go to the 15th row. It's this guy right here. This is E15. Okay, does everyone understand this so far? Like I said, let me know if I lose anyone. Happy to do whatever I need. Okay, so that's E15. All right? Now let me ask you all this. What if I were to ask you for H11? Where am I going to go? So H11 is right here, I think. Here. That's hard to tell, but you get the idea. Okay, that's another important thing to know about Excel. It uses a grid and has columns denoted with what? Letter. Rows are denoted with what? Numbers. Exactly right. And of course, Excel tells you which cell you're in. So if I were to move my cursor and click in this cell, it tells you up here in the upper left corner, what cell does that say? B7. Okay. By the way, this is about as large as I can make the screen. I do apologize for that. It's about as large as I can make it. It's on 150% modification. If I go much larger than that, I really can't do a whole lot in the ribbon. If I go much smaller than that, well, you certainly can't see it. So I hope you can see it okay. If not, happy to, sort of zoom in on certain things as needed. Yeah. You're talking about like that? I mean, I only have the fluorescent control overall, and it's kind of dark, so. But I dimmed the front lights up here. So. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions? All right, like I say, starting off slow. So we have different functions and operators. So we're going to start off talking about operators. Operators are not a function, but they allow us to modify an equation according to what they do. So for instance, we have the minus sign, okay? Does anyone brave enough to hazard a guess as to what the minus sign does? Subtracts, okay? So not too complicated yet. And I'm going to go ahead and add a column. Just go ahead and click on the B column. Just right-click, go to Insert. And if you want to take notes here, you could. I'm not going to take notes. But if you want to take notes and you want to write like subtracts right here, you could. Okay, so does everyone see how I did that? Just click on the column where it says the letter up here in the top. right click, and go to insert. Okay? Everyone good so far? So let's see an example of how we use this operator minus. Okay? So there's a couple different ways to start off Excel equations. Okay? Most commonly, and this is the way that I strongly prefer, and I suggest this is the only way you ever do it, you start off an equation with the equal sign. So you literally just press equals on your keyboard. It's your own keyboard. Press equals on your keyboard, and you can see we're inside the formula bar, but we're also inside the cell. And you can just type in a number. So someone throw me a number. Any number. 15. Okay? And to use the minus sign, we just literally type in minus. So just press minus, and I also heard 4. So I'm just going to do 4. So 15 minus 4. Now, what do we think that answer is going to be? 11? Okay, it is in fact 11. Now, other ways you can start an Excel equation, you can use the @ symbol. You can also use the plus symbol. I don't recommend either of those. I think those are a little bit confusing. I would always start off my Excel equations with the equals sign. Does everyone understand that? We just press equals. Now we can start a function. If we don't do that, what happens? So if I were to type in 15 minus 4, it just keeps that as text. Okay, because I didn't tell it this is an equation. I have to start that off with an equal sign. And by the way, if I want to edit this, okay, if I start typing without clicking into the formula bar, what will happen is it'll erase everything. So I'll show you. So if I were to type equals, now everything is gone. I can hit escape to get it back. Okay, but if I wanted to edit something that's already in a cell, all I have to do is just click into the formula bar up here and then type equals. Okay, and now we have 15 minus 4. Does all that make sense? All right, like I say, please let me know if I'm talking too quickly or anything like that. Okay, we have parentheses next. Okay, so if you've had a basic algebra class at some point, okay, you probably had something like this, PEMDAS. Okay, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, what does that mean? Order of operations. And we start with the P, which is parentheses. Then we have the E, which is exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Okay, hopefully you all remember that. So parentheses in Excel do exactly that. They change the order of operations. So if we wanted something to take place in an order it would not normally take place, we could put that part in parentheses and have it take place earlier, correct? So that's going to be useful. So let's go ahead and see an example of that. Okay, someone throw me a number. 83, and I'm going to say minus 4. Let's get ahead of ourselves and go ahead and use multiplication. Times, someone throw me another number. 7. Okay, so right now, what is the order of operation that we're going to see? So we're going to have 4 times 7, and then 83 minus that. So what's that answer going to be? Okay, let's cheat and see. It's 55. But let's say I want to have the 83 minus 4 take place first. So again, all I have to do, click into the cell, click into the formula bar to make sure we're typing. Let's go ahead and open up a parentheses, and then close the parentheses. Okay, this is going to have 83 minus 4 take place first. Then that's going to be multiplied by 7. Okay? So we do that, we get 553. A little bit larger, right? Does everyone understand that? Anyone confused about anything? Okay? So we have the asterisk here, and in Excel, the asterisk is a multiplication symbol. So we multiply 2 numbers together. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? So I'll just do a brief example of it. How do I start off an Excel equation? I just forgot. Equal sign is exactly right. I didn't actually forget. I was just making sure you guys knew. Someone throw me a number. 5, and we're going to use the asterisk symbol, times. Someone throw me another number. 35. Okay, so this is going to multiply 5 and 35, gives us 175. All right. We have the division symbol here. That's for division. So that's just going to allow us to divide two numbers. So, start off formula with an equal sign. Someone throw me a number. 18. One more number. How about 3? Okay, so it's going to take 18 divided by 3. Of course, that's going to give us 6. Okay, is everyone with me? All right, now we have our good friend addition. Okay, addition, the plus symbol, adds two numbers together. All right, or 2 or more. So we just use it the same way as all the others. A number. Any number. 500. What do we want to add to 500? 1. Okay, so the answer should be 501, right? Hopefully we can all do that one in our heads, and in fact it is. So those are the basic operators in Excel. Okay, so an operator is just going to be sort of something that allows us to change something in some way. Okay, that contrasts with a function. Okay, so a function is going to be a defined command that we type that has given inputs and outputs. Okay, so we start off a function the same way, where we type in equals, function name, then we open up a parentheses. Okay, so for average, what we're going to do is we're going to type in equals, average, open up a parentheses, then we can do a couple different things. Okay, so in the average function in particular, we can enter numbers separated out by commas, and that will average those numbers. We can also select a particular range of data, and it will average that range of data. Okay, so everyone understands what an average is, right? So just give you the equation for average. It's going to be the sum 1 to n of basically everything we have, so all the x's, divided by n, right? Is this correct? So basically what we're doing is we're taking all of our numbers, we're adding them up, and we're dividing by how many numbers there are. That's the arithmetic average. Okay? So it's also the arithmetic mean, right? An exam question I like to throw is where I have both average and mean as an answer choice. And it's really to see who's paying attention. In fact, I often ask for the mean in the question. Okay? Because you cannot do equals mean. You can only do equals average in Excel. Mean is not a function in Excel. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the formulas and functions just to show you how you would go about finding help if you needed it as you went. Okay? So what we can do, just go over to the functions section, and we have all the major functions listed here. Okay, we also have our logical functions listed as well. All the different references, all that good stuff. So let's say we needed help with the average function. Come to this link right here, click on it, and it's going to tell us the function name, what it's used for, some example uses, and most importantly is the syntax. Okay? The syntax is saying, what inputs is it expecting? So as we scroll down, we see it has a couple different ways we can do it. Like I said, you can type in equals average, open parentheses, and then type in your numbers manually. That's one way. The other way is to use range or cell references. Okay? So we're going to see it with both ways. All right? But is everyone with me so far? Anyone confused? All right. So, right here, I'm going to go ahead and close the schedule so I don't get confused. So we have the average function. Like I say, go into a cell, type equals average. And if you wanted to be lazy, you could start typing the function and hit the tab key, and it will go ahead and finish it up to the open parentheses. Okay? Or you can manually type it every time. It doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you get the answer in the end. Does that make sense? I want to show you guys shortcuts so you're quicker, but ultimately it's up to you to decide what works best for you. There's going to be multiple ways to do things. In some cases, I may ask for a specific way. In other cases, I may leave it up to you. It really just depends on the question, so make sure you read everything carefully, okay? So, someone throw me a number. 42. And just to point out real briefly, whenever you type in the function, if it's a recognized function, and you have the open parentheses, it will go ahead and show you the function name as well as the arguments it expects. So right here, you see this is not in brackets. It means it's required. I had to have at least one argument for this function to work. I had to have at least one number that it's averaging. You can't average nothing, because what happens when you divide something by nothing? It's undefined, correct? Yes, it is. Okay? But in here, you see it's in brackets. That brackets means that the number 2 and anything beyond that is optional. I can average just 42. What will the average be? 42 is exactly right. Okay? Because if we average one thing, we go ahead and add it up. So we add up that 142 divided by 1, that gives us 42. So let's just go ahead and see that. And of course it's 42. But that's not very exciting, is it? Okay? Who likes excitement? I love excitement, okay? So let's do something a little bit more exciting. One more number. Someone throw me a number. 58. 2 numbers not exciting enough. Let's keep going. Another number. 47. Let's do one more for fun. 92. All right, so we're averaging 4 numbers. Okay? And that gives us 59.75. Okay, so that's the average of those. Now, here's a good place to note. We have 2 decimal points right now. If we wanted to change that, simply make sure we're clicked on the cell. We can verify that by looking up here to see we're in fact in C7. And up here in the home, we have the number section. We can increase the decimal if we want, or we can click this decrease the decimal button. So this is a good way to do so. Does everyone understand that? We're going to skip average if, count if, sum if, because we're going to be covering conditional logic in a couple days. So, count is going to tell us how much of something there is. So, let's say I have a couple numbers. So I could say count. And again, we have to have at least one thing. So if I just say count 45, it tells us there's one number in that range. So I could do 8, 9, 4, 9, whatever. It's going to tell me how many numbers I have. And this will be a little bit more useful once we cover different types of references. Okay? But is everyone with me on what count does? It just provides how many of something there is. Like I said, we're going to skip count if and if. We will come back to that. We'll actually be using this worksheet for pretty much the entire Excel unit. So, like I say, if you want to take notes in it, that's totally fine. It's yours to do whatever you want with. Okay, so sum. Sum is going to allow us to add 2 or more things together. All right, so to start it off, how do you think we may start it off? Equals, now what? Sum, now what? Open parentheses. Now we have to type in a number, so we'll just use 3. And again, we separate these out by commas. If you forgot that, just look down here in this in the arguments section. It tells you there's a comma. You put a comma. Okay. Brackets on number 2 and number 3. What does that mean? It's optional. We don't have to have a second number. We can add one number to itself. Okay, is that very useful to add one number to itself? Not really, but we can. Okay, so we're going to add up 3, 5, and 8. Okay, so we do that. Of course, we get 16. Okay, pretty self-explanatory so far. We're going to come back to some product as well. Let's go ahead and move on to absolute and relative references. Okay, so the main difference between an absolute and a relative reference is a little bit complicated. But the idea is with a relative reference, it is only going to have the column and row listed. Not going to have anything else. So E15, H11, these are both relative references. Okay, because if I were to have a formula and I were to copy it down, it's going to go to E16, E17, E18 as I copy it down. And like I said, we will see examples of this, but that's what happens is I start off in E15, copy a formula down with E15 in it, it will increment. Okay, does everyone understand that at a basic level? If I wanted to stop that, all I have to do is put a $sign in front of whatever I don't want to change. So for instance, if I wanted to keep the column the same, I just put a $sign in front of the E. And you can do the same with the row if you wanted to. So now when I copy this down, it's going to copy down E15. Okay, because I'm not changing anything. Okay, this holds the row constant, this holds the column constant. Okay, so it depends on where the $sign is in front. So hypothetically, I could put a $sign in front of, let's say, G, but not put it in front of 9. Okay, so if I were to copy across, this would keep the G column constant, but it may change the row. And again, we will see lots of examples of this, but that's what we're referring to. Okay, we're talking about absolute versus relative reference. Does that make sense? Let's do several examples of this. This is an important concept in Excel. Okay, so for an absolute reference, it's just going to be equals, and then type in any cell. So someone throw me a cell. How about F5? So we're just typing F5, right? Now there's a couple different ways we could make this an absolute reference. Okay, we could literally type $signs before column and row. That's certainly one option, but that's a little bit time consuming, isn't it? Okay, you guys like to do things quickly? Hit F4 on the keyboard. Okay, if you cycle through F4 on the keyboard, it's going to cycle between a relative reference, an absolute reference in both the column and row, an absolute reference in just the row, and an absolute reference in just the column. Okay, so go ahead and try that out a couple times. Just hit F4 a few times, cycle through it. That's an absolute reference. Whoops. All right, and then we have relative references. So relative reference is just going to be no $signs. As we copy it, it will change. Okay? Does everyone understand how to do them? Not necessarily how they're used or why they're used, but just how to do them at this point. Okay. So let's go ahead and see some basic examples of how they would be applied. So just click on the D column. Just click up here in the column D. Right-click it, go to Insert. So it just inserts another little column there for us. So now that we've covered references, we're going to cover ranges, because that's a very important concept as well. So come up here to count, hit equals, type in count. And I said earlier, we can do this two ways. We can either type in each of the values, or we can use a range. So there's several different ways to get a range. We can manually type it. That's not usually the best way. Okay, a better way may be to click and drag a particular range. So if I want to count how many months there are, all I did was inside the open parentheses, I just went ahead, clicked, and dragged down the months column here. Okay? Everyone with me? So that tells us there's 12 months, right? Okay? Now let's say that I were to copy this formula down. Okay? We'll be doing this a lot as the semester goes on. Click in the cell. See this little box right here? Mouse over that box, you should get a cross. Okay, so once you have that cross visible, see how I have the cross just mousing over this little box in the bottom right corner? Click on that and drag it down 2 cells. Okay, you see how that went from 12 to 11 to 10 in the count? Why did that do that? We used what type of reference here? So G2 is what type of reference? It's a relative reference. As we copy it down, it's going to increment. So it will be, for the next one, G3 through G14, right? Okay, that's exactly what happens. So if we want to prevent that from happening, and when it's looking at G4 to G15, you can click on that range, and it shows you in the data where it is looking. So it's looking from month 3 to month 12. There's nothing in these 2 cells that it's looking for. Ergo, there are 10 months that it has inside the cells. Okay? How do we prevent that from happening? So if this is what a relative reference does, what type of reference do you think may prevent that? An absolute reference, exactly correct. Okay? So what I can do is, inside of this, I'm just going to hit F4. And now, we do it on both the start and the end. Both of these are now relative or absolute references. Which are they? They're now absolute references. Okay? So let's do the same thing. Let's click on this cell that has the absolute references in the range. And let's do that same thing where we just go down to the bottom right corner, that rectangle right there. Just mouse over that, and it should give it the cross, and just copy it down. And now, what are those months? How many are there? 12. Why? So when we look at this, they all have the same range, even though we copied down, because we used what type of reference? An absolute reference, exactly correct. Okay, that's one example. We'll do many other examples as well. Okay. I do want to cover a couple other things about ranges. So like I said, make sure you're taking notes, however you need to. So I can also, instead of clicking and dragging, I could type in G2 colon G13. Okay, I can do that as well. Another thing I can do is I can do equals count, and I can actually just select the entire G column. Okay, so I can just click G. It's going to do G colon G. Just close out that parentheses, hit enter. Gives us the same answer. It's counting numeric values because there are numeric values present. All right, any questions so far? So those are 3 ways we can do ranges. You'll use different ones depending on what you're needing to do. It'll come more as we go. Is everyone feeling pretty good so far? Anything I need to go over again? All right. Well, the video recording will be posted soon, so. So, now that we've covered ranges, we can do sum product. So, let's say we have arrays of numbers. So let's just put a number on the board, 2, 2, 1, 1. Okay, if I were to do sum product, what it's going to do is it's going to multiply these 2 arrays together. So it's going to do 2 times 1 and 2 times 1. It's going to equal 2 and 2. And it's going to add those up. That's going to give us 4. Okay? Does everyone understand that? So let's see an example of it. So all we need to do is just type in equals sum product. And we could type in our first array. Let's just go ahead and select the entire G column. So just a reminder, to select an entire column, you can just click the column in the upper part there. And now for the second array, just going to use a comma to distinguish them, like it says in the syntax here at the bottom, and let's use the H column as well. Okay, so what should this do? Should this give us multiplication of months times the sample data? It's going to add up all of those residuals. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? So we'll see some examples of this as we go. This is just kind of going over the formulas in their basic level. So that's what sum product does. You take one array, you multiply it by another array, you add up each residual. Okay. Now the good news is you're not going to be having to do that by hand in this class. Okay, because you can imagine there may be some pretty large arrays you may need to multiply together, right? Okay, and that could be a very time-consuming thing to do by hand. So it's a good thing we have functions to help us out with stuff like that. Okay, now we have mode and median and standard deviation. I think these are the last things we're going to cover today. Okay, so mode is going to be something that's going to give us the most frequently occurring value inside of a particular range of data. So for instance, let's take a look at the data. So I'm just going to scroll up and over to our sample data here, and let's use this H column. So if the mode is the most frequently occurring value in the data, what is the mode in this range? 7. And we know that because there are 3 occurrences of 7, right? So to use mode, all we have to do, just type in equals mode, open parentheses, and you can manually type in numbers if you'd like, but most of the time you're going to be using ranges. So a couple different ways to select a range. Just to remind you all, click on the first cell, drag down. That's certainly one way. Another way would be to click on the column itself. And then the third way would be to manually type in the begin cell, colon, the end cell. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, just hit enter, and that gives us 7, because that's the mode. Okay? Then we have the median. Now, the median is going to be, if we laid out all the numbers on a number line, what is the middle value? So if we have an even number of numbers, then it's going to take the average between the 2 middle numbers. Does that make sense? And if it has an odd number, it's just going to take the middle number. Any questions about median? Okay. So let's see here. We have 11 different numbers inside of this data set, and this particular range, I mean. So the median is going to be the one in the middle. Looks like it's going to be 5, right? Let's see. So we just use equals median. Okay, select the range. We've done that several times. And it is, in fact, 5. Just to show you what it would look like if we were to use an even number, let's use the months. We know there are 12 months, so it's going to be 1 through 12. So what should the median be of 12? 6.5, right? Okay. So we're going to do 1 through 12. And the answer is, of course, 6.5. Okay, the reason it's not 6 is because there's an even number. While 6 is one of the middle numbers, 7 is an equally middle number. So we average 6 and 7, and we receive 6.5. Does that make sense? So, like I said, just do a number line to think about median. Plot all of your numbers. In this case, it's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? So we have 5 on this side. We have 5 on this side. So that means there's not one single number in the middle, but there's 2. Okay? So we take those 2, add them together, gives us 13, divide that by 2, that's going to give us 6.5. Okay, does that make sense? Anyone confused by that? Like I said, if anything's confusing, please let me know. Okay, next we have standard deviation, P and S. So the P stands for population. And the S stands for sample. For the most part, they're not going to have vastly different results. There's 1 degree of freedom difference. We're not going to cover degree of freedom or anything like that. You don't even have to worry about how standard deviation is calculated. Just understand that it's a measure of variance to show how varied the data is from the median point, basically. So you'll be taking business stats. They'll go over standard deviations in a lot more detail. But I'm more concerned with, can you use a standard deviation in Excel? I'm not concerned with, can you interpret it? I'm not concerned with, can you do it by hand? I'm concerned with, can you do it in Excel? Okay? So all you have to do for standard deviation population, just type in stdev, and then just use P. You can double click that if you want. You can use tab, or you can manually type the entire thing. Whatever works best for you. And just like before, we just select a range of data. Okay? So let's use our months example. Okay? And that gives us a standard deviation for a population of 3.45. Okay? Now, you could argue that months, given that there's a finite amount and we have all 12 months listed, you could argue that's a population. Could you not? Sure. Okay? You can also use standard deviation for a sample. Same exact way. Okay? So when you do that, you get a larger number. Because what it's doing is it's taking 1 degree of freedom that it's subtracting. So it makes it slightly larger. You don't have to worry about the specifics of the calculation or anything like that. Just understand either one of those I would accept for standard deviation. Okay? And we're going to end off there. I'll hang out for about, I think my next class starts at 10:10. So if you have any questions, I'll be around. Apart from that, hope you have a great day. See you Friday.